Well, Donald Trump's will he or won't he tariff tactics are a guessing game that's hurting our allies and American businesses, even economists, people. Everyone's confused, literally. On Friday, Donald Trump said that he may slap Canada with tariffs on dairy and lumber. But he hasn't decided yet, and that was after Trump paused tariffs for a month on a wide range of products from Canada and Mexico. The whiplash is causing more uncertainty for business owners and Americans just trying to make ends meet. And new this morning, China is now hitting Canada with its own round of tariffs, a sign that Trump's trade wars could have far-reaching effects. The New York Times reports, quote, the Chinese tariffs are a clear warning to Canada and indirectly Mexico not to cooperate with the United States on trade. Well, joining us now to discuss it all is former Florida Congressman David Jolly and special correspondent for Vanity Fair, Molly Jong-Fast. Both are MSNBC political analysts.
Good morning to you both.
It's very confusing.
It's very confusing, absolutely. David, I want to sort of unpack a little bit of the confusion, though, because I always thought the art of negotiation was you get in a room, you lay everything on the table, you work out the terms, and then you make an announcement and you stick to it. Because you figured it out. You don't go, today I'm going to do X, tomorrow, about X, we're not doing that. So you have this, at the core of this, though, is the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, which Donald Trump, by the way, negotiated during his first term. It is a very complex process with respect to trade. You're now throwing in another level of tariffs on top of that. It creates the kind of tensions that we're now seeing play out. And given the fact that the administration doesn't seem to have a clue really what it wants to do, I want you to listen to Peter Navarro, Trump's economic trade advisor, sort of saying, oh, no, there's no confusion here. We know exactly what we're doing. Let's take a listen.
I reject the idea that there's uncertainty. The uncertainty is created by the fact that people don't take President Trump at his word. Now, with respect to the negotiations that we're having now with Canada and Mexico, the way the media portrays it is, oh, the president put tariffs on and then he takes them off and we're not certain what's happening. If you just simply parse what's going on, David, it's a negotiation and we're winning.
Okay, I'll just leave that. You just go ahead and make a comment on that, because
Look, Peter Navarro's lying. The uncertainty is because people are taking Donald Trump at his word, particularly his counterparts, our allies in all of these trade conversations and negotiations. Look, big picture here, I think we've reached the person, woman, man, camera, TV portion, cognitive portion of the first 50 days. Donald Trump has no idea what he's doing right now. I mean, I think that is absolutely clear. As a matter of trade policy, if you are trying to pivot the domestic economy in a certain direction, which we last saw in a major way in the 90s, moving from manufacturing to service. You do that slowly, deliberately. You do it as an ally of domestic manufacturing and industry and the financial community. You do it in partnership, frankly, with our allies. That's not this. And to your point about how do you negotiate a deal, first thing you do is you stick to your original position. Donald Trump keeps backing it up, and he can't even articulate why we're doing this. This is not about generating a new domestic economy. If so, that takes a much more sober approach. It's also not about drugs, because Donald Trump's the guy that pardoned the kingpin of Silk Road, the largest operator of drug trafficking in the world. He pardoned him. So this is not about Donald Trump's conviction about drugs. I think this is an unstable, irascible, angry president who doesn't understand economic theory, is not following the advice of his cabinet and economists across the world, but he just likes to pick a fight. This is a dangerous time, and the word uncertainty and stability is ultimately what could ruin this entire economy, because what markets need is certainty, either certainty going in one direction or the other. What they can't handle is the whiplash because you can't plan around it. Donald Trump has this economy teetering on stagflation. Watch out if we move in that direction, because his numbers already soft will plummet.
I would argue, Molly, I agree with David Jolly that this is not about good economic policy. This is not about what's in the best interest of the American people. Yes, Donald Trump likes to pick a fight. I also think this is about building an imperial presidency. This from Axios about how Trump 2.0 is different than 1.0. The 2018 to 2019 tariffs were implemented by invoking sections 232 and 301 of the trade statutes, the former giving the president authority to impose duties on national security grounds and the latter to combat unfair trade practices. Those laws demand a process of studies and appeals which slowed their implementation while preventing unintended consequences. By contrast, this week's new round of tariffs invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which gives the president broad powers with few checks to deal with, quote, any unusual and extraordinary threat. That, to me, is the through line between so much of what they are doing.
Right. No, I mean, look, this is the larger problem with this administration. They are doing Project 2025, and how they're doing it is slightly different than we thought that how it would be, right? They're doing it through DOGE, but they're cutting the National Weather Service and they're dismantling the guardrails. And this is not surprising. And in fact, it's funny because you see Tom Cole, right, from Oklahoma, chair of House Appropriations, very important, committee, saying, thank you, Elon, for saving these little bits of government, right? This is Congress's job. They have given up their power. We are watching it in real time. So I agree, this is the imperial presidency in action, and it is, and again, we have our allies terrified, right? We have Canada embracing Canadian nationalism. Like, who even saw that as an option?
I mean, to put a finer point on it, Molly is right. Canadian nationalism for Canadians, they are removing California wines from store shelves, according to some NBC News and reporting. They are pushing Buy Canadian to counter higher costs. They are uncharacteristically brandishing unvarnished anger over what they see as a betrayal of a longtime friend. The Canadians are saying they ain't coming to visit America. They're canceling trips. They are pissed off, and rightfully so. Look, David Jolly, there was this article in the New York Times, I believe over maybe 2 days ago, and it talked about how Donald Trump's 51st state language as it relates to Canada is actually quite serious, and the Canadians are taking it very seriously, and it is further angering them. And I think that what we are seeing is the president of the United States looking to bring Canada to its knees economically, and this is economic warfare, if you will. And the Canadians are currently grappling with what that means for them. I mean, there's an election that is going to be held sometime this year, and the issue of how to deal with America is going to be front and center for Canadians. You juxtapose that with Republicans here in America who are speaking out against the president, saying tariffs are not good. We don't want these tariffs. We have to be careful how we do this. The bourbon from Kentucky, the bourbon distilleries are very upset, and Rand Paul is speaking out about it. This is serious business, right, David?
Simone, I agree with all that. I worry there's something much more insidious here, and I think it's Donald Trump's vision of a global realignment of the world order. And what I mean by that is, from national security measures to economic measures, Donald Trump has been attacking our allies since he got in. And if you were trying to take down the country from within, there are three things you would do. You would disrupt our strategic alliances around the world, those of national security and economic security. You would disrupt the ability of the federal government to deliver services to the people. That is DOGE. And excuse me, you would do economic security, you would do DOGE, and then I forget the last one. Let's say violate the Constitution. I'm sorry. But the point here on the insidious piece is disrupting the world order and creating a new alignment. The attacks we are seeing on NATO and our European allies as it relates to Ukraine, the comfort that he gets from Vladimir Putin, the economic disruption with our allies, Canada, Mexico, name them, all of this leads in 2 or 3 years to Donald Trump saying that the West has turned against us and that our allies might be Russia and China. I really think that's the insidious piece about this. He's declared war on our allies. He's done it through economic means. He's done it in the national security posture. And that creates a new world order that I think Donald Trump is flirting with and creates a very, very dangerous global environment.
So, Molly, what David raises is an absolute correct point in terms of the strategic effort by the Trump administration to reorder things. So that raises up a counter question. So how do we respond to that? And who are those who are prepared to lay out some level of opposition or resistance to that? On the economic front, I found it interesting in a column by Congressman Deluzio, who pushed back on this idea that, neoliberal economists who think tariffs are always bad. He noted, rather than reflexively condemning all tariffs, Democrats should be highlighting how Trump's scattershot threats, unanchored to any real industrial strategy, will not deliver on the goals of rebuilding American manufacturing, raising wages, or rebalancing trade. For one thing, tariffs are effective only when used in a predictable and stable way, and the Trump administration won't approach has been anything but. When I read that, I sort of get this sort of conflicting perspective. You tell me that, reflexive condemnation of all tariffs is bad, but then go on to tell me why condemnations of all tariffs should take place. So help me out here. How do Democrats thread this needle narratively to help Americans contextualize what's happening to them?
So here's what I would say. I think that what has happened is there's another piece to this, which is there is not the same strong mainstream nonpartisan media there was in 2016. It is much, much, much smaller. So it has fallen on a lot of these Democratic senators to narrate what's happening, right? Like to explain what they've seen in the last 7 weeks. And I've seen some Democrats do that. And I think what's been smart is where you've seen places like Bernie Sanders go in and give town halls where Republicans won't. Or you've seen Chris Murphy narrate, he did a speech on the floor of the Senate where he talked about what had happened in the last 6 weeks. That kind of stuff, there are some really popular things that Republicans are trying to take away, right? Like in that top line reconciliation bill, it had $880 billion from Medicaid over 10 years. That will mean closing rural hospitals. That will mean closing nursing homes. Those kind of things are popular, right? It's unpopular stuff, and they have to just continually sort of narrate what's happening for voters, because if they don't do it, no one else will.
Right.
And they got to get out of that. These are good tariffs. These are bad tariffs. Okay, but right now we're dealing with a man that don't know the difference.
Right.